Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Justin here to do a review of the American adaptation of Kamen Rider Ryuki, and that is Kamen Rider Dragon Knight. And as an American adaptation of Ryuki, Dragon Knight now tells the story of Kid Taylor, a repeat juvenile offender despite pleas of innocence of his alleged crimes. A year prior to the series, Kid's father disappeared, along with a number of individuals in the Los Angeles area. While being released from police custody, Kid sees a reflection of his father, telling him to find the dragon. After various circumstances, Kid meets Maya Young, a blogger of the paranormal and a bookstore clerk, and he also meets Len, a Kamen Rider from the mirror world called Ventara. Kid finds the dragon, makes the contract, and becomes a Kamen Rider, and Len tells Kid there's now no turning back. Hoping to find his father, Kid continues his battle as a Kamen Rider to stop the forces of General Zaviax from taking over the Earth. And, well, even though this series came out, I think, 7 years after the Japanese release, then again, Kamen Rider Black RX came, almost 10 years after as well. But yeah, despite that, the producer chose to adapt this series because of its large cast and its inclusion of a female writer. On a core basis, it uses the material decently well. It is not a full adaptation, but it naturally has some changes that tells its own distinct story. The changes do make sense that allows it to have the multi-layer development that the original Ryuki series has, but with its own twists. The relationship between Kid and Len isn't antagonistic as Shinji and Ren's, but works in its own way. The remaining writers are also very excellent in their own roles. Dragon Knight is a literal translation of the word Ryuki, but the remaining writers have different names that work in conjunction with their gimmick and intimidate at the same time. For example, Kamen Rider Scissors, which was his name in Ryuki, is now called Incisor. Come on, in native-speaking English countries, Scissors is not an intimidating name at all. Incisor, now that works, so the name changes work perfectly in my opinion. But when they transform as writers, I do like the echo they have to their voices, indicating that they are wearing some kind of armor, which I don't think has been done in any of the Japanese versions at times, but correct me if I'm wrong. The only time I've ever seen this was in the Japanese Kamen Riders was with Callus in Kamen Rider Blade, but he was a different situation. I also like how they transform just by saying, Kamen Rider. Granted, finding a catchy way to transform Henshin is hard, but Power Rangers kind of beat it to the punch 20 years ago. But saying it's Morphin Time, which is a good way of making it sound iconic at the same time. But Kamen Rider, saying Kamen Rider, it gives it an alien and exotic feel. General Zaviax is a villain I really liked. He's very low with his tactics and manipulation, and he is just sick with how low he goes. That's how great of a villain he is. I felt that what does better than the Japanese version is that it is a better balance of the story and the character development and direction. While with Ryuki, I think it was way too character-centric, but in a great way, but at the same time, I kind of felt like I needed a story that flows. I felt this series was better using the Kamen Rider Incisor, or Scissors in the Japanese version, more than Ryuki in my opinion. And I also liked how they further used and developed the female Kamen Rider Siren, who was called Femme in the Japanese version, who was only exclusive to the special and movie. But another major issue I have as when it approaches the ending, the last 10 episodes or so, this is kind of a spoiler right here, but Kid's kind of pushed to the side as a side, and then he comes back as a side character. But you'd have to see the series to understand what I'm talking about. But other than that, the series really had me hooked from the start, and I give the story and characters a 9.5 out of 10. What I really liked was the inclusion of Matt Mullins in the series. You may recognize him as Johnny Cage in that episode of the Mortal Kombat Internet series in that short movie that paved way for it. His on-camera fighting style is very suitable for the Tokusatsu genre, and his fights out of costume are really awesome. I really like how he pivots when he does his high-flying spinning kicks. I felt out of costume fights I thought they were really underused when they had a lot of talented martial arts actors in this series, to the point they got Mark Dacascos. But the series utilizes the Japanese footage and original American footage. They know how to mix them very well. I also liked how they used some motorcycle scenes with Len and the motocross driver, and I understand the series won the inaugural Emmy Stunt Coordination Award, and I think it truly deserved it. The action is very intense and fun, but unfortunately it lacks the bloody and bruised effect that Ryuki had, which made it more very believable and, made the characters come across as very vulnerable. Of course, that doesn't fly in American TV, but the action, I think, is still good enough for a 9 out of 10. As for the music, it's more generic hard rock to suit, for American audiences. Kind of sounds like, a cheap imitation of Korn. The theme song works in its own way, but the Japanese music overall is just much, much better, and it's kind of more my taste, but, it works with American audience, and for that, I give it a 7 out of 10. Well, as an adaptation of Kamen Rider, it is great. Naturally, far, far, far superior to Saban's Masked Rider, that awful piece of shit that even Ishinomori Shotaro hated. I don't know what Ishinomori would feel about Dragon Knight, but I know that Dragon Knight was dubbed in Japanese by some of the original Kamen Rider actors, which I thought was cool, but I never really got around or really bothered watching it. It is sad that it's not available on DVD in America, since I thought it's even better than a lot of Sentai adaptations into Power Rangers. And when the Wang brothers adapted this series, they made it very clear from the start that this was not Power Rangers, and they do a good job of saying, hey, this isn't Power Rangers. I thought Dragon Knight, despite some significant changes, was a great American way of presenting international audiences to the franchise, which I give an overall score of an 8.75 out of 10.